Welcome to Vector's PREEvision version 9 tutorial series. In this installment we'll be creating a network topology diagram. So for a tutorial overview, what we'll be covering are first a couple of assumptions and preconditions. We will have ECUs with bus connectors defined in the model before we start trying to create a diagram. So the steps we're going to follow are, first we'll create a diagrams component package, then we'll create a network diagram in the diagrams package, we'll add an ECU to the network diagram via drag and drop from the model tree, and then we'll use the show connectors capability from the context menu so that we can populate that ECU with the network of interest. Next, we'll use the populate capability from the context menu to add all of the rest of the ECUs to that network on the diagram. And then we'll align the ECUs to make it look however we want. Okay, so now here we are in PREEvision. So the first thing that we're going to do is go into the hardware architecture layer, and you see we have a hardware components package. Underneath there we have a components package, and here we have some ECUs. So what I'm going to do first is, under this hardware components package, I'm going to create a diagrams package with a new component package, and I'm just going to call it diagrams. Now this is just a style thing. There's no requirement to do it this way, but I find it's helpful to keep your diagrams separated from your ECUs. So now that I've got this package, I'm going to create a new network diagram, and I'm just going to call it tutorial. So now we've got a blank diagram here. So what I'm going to do is just grab one of these ECUs from the model tree and drag it over into the diagram. Now, to be able to route the network, what we need to be able to do is to show the bus connectors on the periphery of this device. So with that ECU highlighted, if I right click, then I will choose this option, show hide connectors. You can also reach it via Shift F4 if you just want to use the keystrokes. So when I choose that show hide connectors, it shows me all the bus connectors that are a part of that ECU. So the only one that this ECU has is the comfort connector type. So that's the network that it's attached to. So now that connector is shown on the periphery of the ECU. I can pick that up and move it anywhere that I want to make it look nicer. So now that I have a connector shown here, if I select that connector and right click, I can say populate. So what this is going to allow me to do is to show all the connected bus connectors. Now I can do some things to try to affect the way it lays out. So let's just choose left side just to see what happens. But when I say OK here, what's going to happen is all of the ECUs that have this connector type and are connected to that network will now be populated onto the diagram. So you see what happened is now I've got all of the ECUs that have that bus type. They're all connected onto the topology diagram. So I can pick these up and move them any way that I want them. And for a little while these things are going to look a little bit sloppy, but it doesn't take long to arrange them nicely. So I'm just gonna put all these in a row like this. and I can multi-select all these connectors and move them so that they're a little bit further down on the outside. I don't want that one because it's already where I want it. Let's see what happens. Yeah, so I'll just move this one back just a smidge. Okay. All right. So now that I have all of these ECUs connected, you can see that this routing is a little bit mixed up. So if I select that network, and again from my context menu, I can say reroute interconnection, and it makes it look a lot nicer. So that's one network complete. Well, I'm assuming since I have a gateway, I must have another network. So if I select the gateway and do the show connectors for the gateway, I should have more than one. And I do. I have the powertrain connector type. So there's another network that I can route. So again, I will pick this connector up and move it a little bit so that it's shown on this side. And I'll do the same thing again where I say populate. And this time I'm going to choose right side. And let's just rearrange these, make it look a little bit nicer. And I'll move these connectors to the other side. And I'll do the same thing before that I did before, where I reroute that bus connection. So now, very quickly, I've created a network topology diagram out of all of the ECUs that were in my model. Next, just to show what we can do with this diagram, if I look in the communication package and it layout package, I've got CAN frames, PDUs, and signals. Any one of these, if I choose something, I'll be able to see based on highlighting who the provider and consumer of that data is. So in this case, the gateway is also a receiver of this gearbox info. I can also do that on PDUs. So the door is a provider and this device is a receiver. I can also do it with signals. So in this case, the engine sends the gear, it goes through the gateway, and it's received by the dashboard. So this is just an example of the kind of power that you can take advantage of with a diagram for visualizing how your PDUs and frames and signals are routed. So that's all I wanted to show in this video. Thanks for watching.